Monica Yates, welcome to the More Life podcast. You couldn't be a more perfect guest for the audience that we have tuning in and listening today. You have been on this insane podcast tour talking about your new book and a variety of different things. And I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and celebrate your newly New York Times bestselling book.
Yes, you're the first podcast, obviously, because it happened last night. You're the first one I've done since it. So you're the first person to say it on a podcast.
I'm so grateful to be the first. Like we have such like a high culture of celebration within our brand, so I feel really lucky to be able to just sit here and soak
Thank you.
in like the feminine wisdom that number one you just embody as a human being, and number two the wisdom and the way that you share it in the world. You and I have I don't know that we've had a lot of like engagement with each other's stuff in the past, other than like I know who you are and I know what you stand for. But the way that I hear people speak of you, Monica, is like just speaks
Oh, I have
as
goosebumps. Thank
you're
you.
confident and just how you show up in this world. And so, like, besides, of course, celebrating New York Times bestseller, like, wow,
Yeah,
congratulations.
wow. I was actually on a Mason call when I got the phone call from my agent. So they took pictures and I'm just like sobbing and my husband ran out and it was just like, it was so we didn't think we were going to find out till 7 p.m. because that's when it goes public. And so when I got a phone call at 4:30, I was like, why is my agent phoning me? And then, yeah, it was just like, I'm still, today I'm like having my breakfast and I'm like, how do I go about my life anymore after this?
I hope somebody creates you like a t-shirt that has like your book and the New York Times bestseller, or like I want to see so much merch all over your body everywhere you go for at least like 6 months. I don't think we celebrate stuff like this long enough. I think it can be such like a blip in the radar of like I did it and it's so exciting for like a week, maybe 10 days, and then all of a sudden it's forgotten about. Like I would love to see a whole new wardrobe for a 6 month run.
That wardrobe will have to fit a big baby bump. We could add in there 31 weeks pregnant and made New York Times bestseller at the same time. But I do agree with you. I do feel like and this is kind of like the, narrative that we were kind of talking about before we got on of just so many of us, high achieving A type women. We are just going next, 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 next. And we're just ticking things off the list and we're not receiving it. We're not sitting in it. We're not actually like experiencing what we've created. We just go on to the next thing as though anything that we've created isn't really enough for us to just like sink into.
Absolutely. And like the, oh my God, I think like the thing that I have loved evolving into, I think I have actually always been this way. I was conditioned out of it and then I came home to it, which is this like this deep appreciation for the nuances of the norm and
Mm.
not as much the special things, like because those are such like sugar rushes for the body. Kate had said, I interviewed her on like 2 episodes I think ago.
Okay.
She was talking about how like dopamine is like the hungry ghost that can't be fed or that can't be full or satisfied or
Yeah.
something like that. And then the oxytocin is like the thing that creates like that true like depth and satisfaction in the body. So,
I
but
love that, especially these days with social media. Like we are just all like dopamine addicted. We're like we're overflowing with dopamine, but at the same time we're like dopamine deprived, and nothing ever feels like enough. And then for the feminine, it's like slowing down, then feels so like boring, and it feels like you don't get anything from it. But we have to like reignite our senses to actually be able to experience pleasure from the little things in life. I'm always someone where I'm like, the little changes that you make or the little wins in your life, they actually are the big wins,
yeah,
not the big win. Like you think, oh, the New York Times bestseller, that's the big win. I'm like, actually, no, the big win for me is like when I get to pick an eggplant off the eggplant thing that I have in my veggie patch, right? Like that, like when I every day when I go outside and I see how my veggies are doing and they're growing, that's the win. Like those little things every day, they are what create the deep nourishment over time in your body, not the big things like the New York Times bestseller. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm the same person. Nothing's changed. My personality hasn't changed. My life hasn't. It could change as a result of it, but you know, I'm someone where I'm like, it's the little things every day.
I couldn't agree with you more. I posted this morning saying like I'm a grandma because my daughter's making tomatoes. I couldn't. Like, you, anybody who has that like ability, like I in her human design, like her healing component is her hands, and so like them being in
Okay.
the earth is like very. It makes sense why she does so well here, but I'm just like mine is my inner sight and vision, and I'm like, that's I
Love
think
it.
I have her though, because I love it. I'm like, I love being a grandma of tomatoes and cucumbers and green beans and Mary.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Gardening is truly like the best. We won't go down that tangent, but I'm like, I am obsessed with gardening. Like growing a veggie patch is like the most satisfying thing.
I love all of the components of it except for making sure that they stay alive.
Yeah, got it. Got it. It's actually hard. It's really unless you have like a really good watering system, it is really hard, especially if you live in Florida, right, Andrea? Yeah. So like we live in Georgia and so it gets so hot in summer and so stuff just dies so quickly if you're not like constantly on top of the watering. So anyway, this is not a gardening podcast episode, but that can be saved for later.
People just had their lives changed and they're just like, wait, you're right, you're right, you're right. Okay, so besides the good, honestly, we could actually come back to this because I think that there's something like there's a connection here to the conversation that we're gonna have today. So I was telling Monica before this that my friend and I, Ashley Stahl, had gone up to Orlando to support her when she was a keynote speaker up there at an event. And we were just like prepping for her keynote, having conversation. She was testing out we have an AI that's almost like a feminine wisdom business assistant. And so she was like testing it out and she's like, Andrea, this is so needed. Like we as in like the feminine, we are so tired of the boss babe era. Our ovaries are falling out. And she said it facetiously, but it's not funny because it's so fucking true. Like, I've had to like shrink fibroids, like, I've had like ovarian cyst bursts, like just personally, I've dealt with a lot. I know you have talked about this a lot about like women losing periods. I think you experienced that
Yep.
yourself as well. So, like, I kind of want to kick off here about like what are the dangers that we should be looking for that we've normalized that shouldn't be?
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
really about it.
I think the first thing that we've normalized is just the struggles that literally everyone and their dog has conceiving. Like that's not normal,
Yeah.
right? And part of it is obviously, the microplastics and the toxic chemicals in our environment and all of that. But a really big part of it, but part of that is also then the disconnection from the feminine and our body and our intuition. Because when you are super aligned with your body and your intuition, it's like you don't want to be putting that stuff in your body. It doesn't feel right. Like you don't even need to understand the education behind it. It just doesn't feel right. So part of it's that, but such a big part of it is not just the obvious stresses in our life, Andrea, but also the unconscious stresses. People often focus so much on, okay, I'm going to meditate every day because of, XYZ work stress. And it's like, okay, well, whilst you're in the meditation and maybe for a short time after, you've relieved that, obvious work stress, but it's all the other stresses. It's the stresses of you feeling like the only way to get anywhere in your life is to people please. You constantly be worrying about rejection and abandonment, you being stressed about money all the time. Like it's all those unconscious stresses that like the resentment that you have in your relationship that actually end up being the thing that causes your bloody ovaries to fall out. It's not the obvious stresses like work. And I say that because I'm seeing so many um a lot of women actually are doing this, and it is kind of like, of course there's a place for this, but I also think that it is just an easy finger to point of I'm burnt out because of my job. My job is too demanding, my job is too hard. And we can sit here as entrepreneurs and we can, I can at least say that being an entrepreneur is one of the hardest jobs. And, people will very easily say, oh, must be so easy for you to be pregnant because you're your own boss. And it's like, the grass is always green on the other side. And I think that, there's pros and cons to everything, but just, the stress of you're paying other people's bills, like you're keeping the roof over the head of however many employees that you have. Actually, it's not that easy, right? There is this constant pressure and stress as an entrepreneur where, yes, you can decide what time you want to get out of bed. You also have that constant stress of, I have to make money, I have to keep the business going and whatnot, because if you don't, then obviously that's not good. Whereas at least when you're working for somebody else, at the end of the day, when you come into your house, you can kind of actually switch off. So I think it's really easy for a lot of women to just be blaming work as burning me out. But what they don't realize is actually a lot of burnout is caused from decision fatigue. So
Mm-hmm.
we are making too many decisions as women. We are trying to control our man, control our relationship, lead everything. We can't let go of control. We are gripping onto things, and that's causing more tension in our body. We're then living with these constant unconscious stresses. We're so out of alignment with our feminine energy, and we just blame our job. But there's so many women that I know and that I'm sure you know that work so much. I work a lot. I love my job, and I'm not burnt out because I'm also having so much joy in my life. I'm not trying to control my husband and micromanage everything. I'm actually able to surrender and receive. And so it kind of then can help counteract some of the stress from working, for example. Whereas a lot of women, it's just this constant tension in their life.
You've talked in some of your posts about um, it's not just about learning how to be in your feminine energy, it's also about learning how to receive your partner
Mm.
and receive the gifts that they have to bring to the table. And I'll tell you what, like I was married at 20
Oh, wow,
and
young.
really young, and there was no conversation about feminine and masculine energy, about polarity. Like none of this shit like was talked about. And I just, we did all of the things that you might expect. Like we just repeated our parents' behaviors, and I was a hyper vigilant, like hyper independent, type
Yep.
A. I wasn't the firstborn, but like I was the first one responsible to
Okay.
be.
Yep.
And um, and I brought all of that in my marriage. And it can really be easy to look back into and be like, oh, well, that relationship was like toxic. And
Mm.
it was like he was toxic. It was like us together in like in the inner wisdom or lack thereof, in our understanding of ourselves and our understanding of each other, our understanding of our trauma, our understanding of our gifts. And it created the perfect collapse where like a 20-year
Yeah.
marriage wasn't able to survive it. And now I'm in a relationship with a very healthy, masculine, loving, trustworthy man. And I'll tell you, like, I had done a lot of feminine work in order to like be in a, obviously I couldn't even
Yep.
have like manifested this man had I not
Yes.
done that work, but also walking the walk.
It's a different story.
Wow.
So wait, one of my questions for you then is like, what was one of the biggest things that you were afraid to let go of that you had to then create safety around letting go of?
Sometimes it's just allowing him to even hold my emotion. I
Mm,
remember thinking, like, when I thought I was going to start dating again, one of my early thoughts was like, I'm going to be the easiest for a man because I know how to control my own emotions. And I didn't realize like that was still my hyper independent child that was basically saying, I don't trust him to hold my emotions. So therefore I
mm.
just do it myself.
Because I'm like any feminine woman, like she's not this. When people are like, "Oh, I'm such a low maintenance," I'm like, "No, you fucking not." Like,
Yeah.
no truly embodied woman is low maintenance. Like, we have very specific things that we need in order to know that we're happy. When we tell ourselves this lie of low maintenance, or I'm like this cool, laid back, like nothing phases me, I'm like, that is a facade. That is a story that you tell yourself because you're afraid of being too much
Yeah.
and you're afraid of a man not being able to hold your bigness.
That.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that
also,
was always my programming of I'm too much.
yeah, I don't think that I actively had that thought, but I think I just behaved as if I couldn't be.
Mm,
Like it wouldn't be tolerated because really like growing up my brother was like more of the emotional and needy one. So it was just like there
got
wasn't
it.
space for me
Yeah.
to also be that, or like I would watch my mom collapse. I'm like I couldn't put it on her. So I didn't. Right.
But how good does it feel when like you can just be like an absolute meltdown, feminine, chaotic mess and your man's just like, I got you. And so calm. It's just the hottest thing.
There's nothing like it's like it is the greatest drug on this planet, and I've done a lot.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. It's true though. I think there is something so healing for our feminine nervous system and just, it's just healing in regards to like feeling safe to be expressed when a man just says to you, like, I got you. And you don't feel judged. You don't feel too much. You don't feel needy. You don't feel any of those things. You actually just feel seen and held. And that's also the same though with other women, which is why I am noticing so many women craving like their village to come back, because we can only get so much from a man, right? And how you got to think about it, like back in the day, how much should women give each other in terms of intimacy and connection and being seen and being heard and validated. And it's like, part of what I talk about in regards to the receivership is that you also need to be okay with the fact there's going to be plenty of times where your man won't understand you, and that
Yeah.
you sometimes won't feel understood and you won't understand him because your brains are so different. And if you try to make your partner also your best friend, that's where that can become really hard. It's so important to also be able to discern, when do I need to go and get these needs met by my girlfriends, because they will be telling you exactly what you want to hear. They're going to acknowledge you. They're going to see you. They're going to make you feel understood. Whereas his brain's going to be like, waste of resources. Why is she crying about this? Or like, don't understand. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there are so many situations where my husband and I just can't see eye to eye on something. And I like fully don't understand why he's thinking the way that he's thinking. He doesn't understand the way that I'm thinking, the way that I'm thinking. And we just have to agree, oh, this is just like a man and woman thing. Like, we're just not going to see eye to eye. So let's not try and sit here and continue to talk and actually then end up over communicating and doing more harm than realize, and creating unsafety in the moment. It
Yeah.
sometimes is better to just be like, it's actually okay that we don't understand each other. We can move on and love each other deeply and respect each other, and not necessarily need to fully understand each other.
We've had many, many conversations that are really similar. And what we intend to do in those moments is like maybe not try to understand the nuances of what's happening, but under like it's like a zoom out method of like, I understand your depth, I understand your intention, and like validating each other's intent.
Mm,
Because I do believe this is like a little nuance, and I suspect that more women listening than you and your partner need to hear this, is like the walking away and saying like, agree to not agree here, agree that we just can't
to
understand,
disagree. Yeah.
can sometimes still feel like there's like unclean energy. I'm such
Yes.
a clean energy freak. So like
Yes.
I'm always looking for like, where are the nuances where we can feel like this is closed, and that there
Yes.
is like mutual validation, there is mutual understanding, even if we don't understand the nuances of this microscopic.
Yeah, because I will say, what I say to people is, I say, you can see your partner without needing to fully understand your partner. And then that seeing is like the validating, the respect, the like all that kind of stuff, where the person can feel, fully seen in their experience, even if their partner isn't like, oh, I completely understood where you were coming from. And the reason why I say that is because we also don't want our partner to feel like he has to lie, because again, like, we can feel his lack of like integrity in his answer, and then that can then, throw out the trust. So, this is also a technique where it's like, this is why it's so important to be able to be regulated in a relationship, and to not be codependent, and to not be outsourcing your sense of safety and power and worth to the other person, where you only feel worthy, enough, and loved if everybody in the world understands you. if
Mhm.
you if you fully understand yourself and validate yourself and feel enough for yourself and all of that, then you don't need somebody else to understand you in order to feel those things.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Um, oh my God, literally, we could talk for like 6 hours on this one topic.
We really could.
The conversations between, I mean, like so much more. Like,
Yeah.
see you next month.
Yeah, but this is why the nuances are really important. I'm so big on add context, add context. Instagram can really make a lot of people feel like, oh, I saw this on Instagram, so I have to do this, or I saw this couple
Right.
do this, so like, why aren't we doing that as a couple? Like, oh my God, our relationship isn't healthy. And even when I'm giving clients advice, and I'm sure that you're the same, Andrea, it's like, I don't know your relationship to the depth that you know. You've got to add the context and the nuances of what's happening in that exact moment, how people are feeling, blah, blah, blah. And you got to use your intuition, because what I say that works for somebody else, or what I say on a podcast, isn't necessarily what you should actually do in that current moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also this misunderstanding around like what our emotions mean when we're, especially if we're in some sort of like conflict, because a lot of times like the charged emotion is coming from trauma. And I know you talk about
Mm-hmm.
that as well. And like it has oftentimes we're like, I'm mad and it's because this person said this about me. I've had so many times where I'm like, this one person showed up this way in this context, and it's like, okay, same scenario twice, but depending on like the emotion that I walked in with, I might feel like charged and upset
Yeah.
differently based off of like it aggravating a trauma. I remember when when Keith and I moved in together. Keith's my partner.
Yeah.
Just moved in together in February. I was like, oh my God, is this the right decision? I cried every day for like weeks. It was so hard. I had no idea what I was in for. I'm like, we spend every day together anyway. I'm always at his house. Like, why am I paying like an exorbitant amount of money for this like waterfront condo when I'm never
Yeah.
there? And I'm like, okay, this is like the easiest, most obvious decision. And then like coming into his world and like not feeling like I had my like sacred space anymore, and like
Mm.
all like trauma, deep trauma coming up. He said this one thing so facetiously one night. We're just like laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and he like made a joke that like any other time I would have been totally fine. Had it been a month before that when we weren't talking about moving in together, I would have just laughed it off and been like, ha ha ha. But now the context has, the environment has changed, and I literally like walked into the bathroom and snot balled, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. I have to run. Like, I'm like, where's my bag? I gotta get out of here. Like we just had to go
Yeah.
into the room and tell him. And I'm like, I'm having a severe emotional response, not because of anything you said. I'm not quite sure why yet, but like, I need to like communicate this with you. And he's just like, this is what I needed from you. And he just like wrapped me up,
Yeah.
like, give me all of it. Every tear is mine. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it'll be fine. Like,
Oh, but that emotional vulnerability from your side allowed the two of you to get deeper and not become distant,
yeah,
you know? But that was because of your emotional awareness within yourself. You know,
right.
how many women get mad over the dishwasher and they think it's the dishwasher. It's not the fucking dishwasher, it's something else. And
Mhm.
then they have all these screaming matches over the fucking dishwasher. And why does the same situation happen again and again and again? Because it's not about the dishwasher,
Yeah,
right? It's about something so much deeper that you haven't, healed or allowed yourself to release.
yeah. Or rewired in terms of like the context and the meaning or what we think it means.
Yeah.
Like some inherited like meaning of like my mom was like, I'm never supported, you don't do anything right, and so I've inherited this, and I've watched just like men continuously disappoint me. That was like a big thing that I had to eliminate for myself in order to like let
Mm.
in, was like my deep belief system of like, he's just going to disappoint me anyway, so like why bother? And that played out in
Was
every.
that was that a big thing that then um I'm sure you went through your era of like the hyper independence girl boss, like blah, 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 like just need the external validation. And was that, because I know for me, that was one big thing for me of like the abandonment wound and just the narrative of like men aren't to be trusted. They're always going to let you down. Like they're not reliable, but like just basically like don't open your heart to a man. Do not trust a man kind of thing. So then it's like, okay, well, if you can't trust a man, you can only trust yourself. And hence that hyper independence, masculine armor, all of that just begins.
Exactly. I remember somebody had asked on a podcast, and I heard her say, like, what are my belief systems about men and why do I want them to be true? And I'm like, oh, I've done this work around money. Haven't done this work around men yet. And that literally was so eye opening. I remember even working with a therapist, and she's like, Andrea, say you meet a guy. Or she goes, imagine like Sally and Fred, and they've been together, and they have been together for 50 years. They're celebrating their 50-year wedding anniversary, and they've like, of course, had conflict, but they've never fought. She goes, what's the first word that comes to your mind instantly? And I was like, boring. And I was like, oh God, I'm addicted to this.
Mm, yeah. But but men and money are so intertwined because
Mhm.
they both require the energy of receivership.
Yeah.
And so when you also heal, yes, healing your relationship with money is one thing to do, but when you also heal your relationship with men so you can receive from them, that receivership then also allows you to receive more money.
What are some signs that someone's receivership is blocked?
Good
Or like,
question. When someone gives you a compliment, you brush it off, or you
mm,
tell them like you can't say thank you and receive it. You're like, oh no, I look disgusting today, or whatever it is, right? Or like, oh no, like I don't deserve that, blah, blah, blah. That's a really big one. When a man goes to offer to pick your bag up for you, open the door for you, help you in some kind of way, it's just that I can do it myself. I'm fine, like don't need help kind of situation, whether you've said that or whether you feel that. That's a really big one. When it comes to work, running a business, I know that a lot of women listening to your podcast run their own business. A really big one is feeling icky around asking for the sale or for money. And then when someone pays you, struggling to actually receive that and hold it. If you feel like no matter how much money you make, your bank account always stays the same, so you struggle to actually hold money, that's a really big one that's going to be showing up in your relationship too, where it's like it doesn't matter how much love that you get, you can't actually feel like you are overflowing with love in your life. If you can't just sit outside or sit by a window and stare outside and just literally like look at the trees or the city or whatever it is and just stare and actually receive your surroundings and not be on your phone or reading a book or doing something else, that slowness and that stillness, that's a really big one. I mean,
mm.
I could go on to here forever, but the biggest one that I will notice is definitely around the compliments or the praise. Like if somebody is praising you, congratulating you, you feel very uncomfortable.
I agree with that. And taking what you said about like receiving your surroundings and offering a little bit more on that one, like a nap. Like if you
Mm,
lay there and you're like, first of all, if you're like can't, or second, like the whole time you lay there, you're just stressed about what you should be doing, like major, major sign that something is off. Okay,
yeah.
in your book, you talk a little bit about like what we're talking about in the beginning of like the boss babe era, the girl boss era, and like, is this really what we want? And I
Yeah.
think when we started this era, it was like a reclamation of power. But I think our perception of what we think power means for the feminine is flawed
Uh-huh.
based on the boss babe slash girl boss era. Can you talk about that?
Yes. Oh, I love that. So, obviously, feminism, super important, right? We wouldn't be sitting here today if it didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. Like, we all, I think, have that understanding in the context of this situation. Um, what has happened though is like the pendulum has swung too far to the other side. And what you were saying before of like the addicted to the drama, like you're addicted to the drama in relationships. So many women, especially the really radical feminists, they are addicted to fighting just for the sake of fighting and being angry. They actually feel more significant as a woman. They feel more empowered as a woman in their anger than in softness, than in receptivity, than in like even contentment, like actually just being okay with their life. They feel better being angry, and a lot of it is just because that is what's obviously familiar to their nervous system. Their mum was always angry, their mum was always complaining about whatever it meant to be a woman, their grandmother probably was doing the same, and so that's just continued to be passed on. And so for a lot of us as women, we have internalized that the only way to be powerful is to essentially beat a man or to prove that we can do what a man can do. And so, hence, so many women, unconsciously or consciously, they spend the early days of their career, at least until they maybe realize what's happening. But they spend so much time unconsciously competing against men, trying to climb the ladders, prove they can do what a man can do, going after these jobs that maybe they don't even actually want that job, but they want the kind of status because that status or the title or whatever it is, that makes them feel enough. Because essentially, it's this unconscious feeling of we are not inherently enough as a woman. That's why people say, I'm just a stay at home mom, as though that is less than if you're a working woman. So what we've done over time is we've idolized and put on a pedestal the woman that is working, the woman that's working and being a mother, that's working, the woman that's doing all of the things, right? We look at her and we go, oh, how does she do it all? I mean, there's been so many movies made off that, it's just been very idolized. And so many women feel like inherently not enough as a woman, right? Separate to like the beliefs from like the wounding from trauma and stuff. Inherently, like they aren't enough as a woman, so they have to go and prove themselves. And simultaneously, they will often feel like if they have this desire to do less or to be a mother or to pull back, that they are then weakening their power and they're like submitting in a negative way to the patriarchy, rather, and that's then kind of like the narrative, right? Versus actually realizing that your ability to choose what your heart desires as a woman is powerful. A woman that is doing her career is no more powerful or successful than a woman that is the chosen stay at home mother. It is simply a choice. And so in the book, the whole premise of the book is that I'm not telling women what to do. That's not the book at all. The book is like a big question mark, basically. The book is, the way that I've written it is, I'm asking you a lot of questions so that you can actually form a decision for yourself that is outside the box of what society put us in. Society took us out, like the feminism took us out of the housewife box of like, that's all we were worth. Okay, great. But now we've been put in this girl boss box. If that makes us a better woman than quote unquote just being a stay at home mother or choosing not to work or whatever it is. Um, and so really what I'm wanting to give women is the permission to be the woman they want to be in the given season of life. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I want to be fucking killing it in my business, go and do that. Amazing. That doesn't make you less feminine. Go and do it, right? And if in 3 years' time you decide, actually, I'd really like to become a mother now, and I would like to be able to, do my business part time or not at all, I want to throw it in the bin, I want to be a full time mom, then amazing. But what I've noticed for a lot of women is they get so sucked into the career aspect that when they then want that season change, there is so much resistance. They can't receive it. They can't slow down. They don't allow, and then you look at how many women get really bad postpartum depression. And I'm like, I can't help but wonder if part of that is us not giving ourselves permission to accept the new season of life that we're in because we think that it's less than becoming a mother. So, I mean, I could go on this forever, but there is no answer to this. The answer is simply, what do you want? How do you want to show up in your feminine as a woman in your given season of life? And that is enough. You are not less than the friend that is working full time and being a mother if you've decided, I don't want to work full time anymore and I'm going to be a stay at home mother. That's amazing. But we have to give that like validation to ourselves, basically, because society isn't giving it to us. And I also think, the last thing, Andrea, on this, I also think that this constant complaining, if you will, this might trigger some, but this constant complaining of the world was made for men, the system set up for men. Like, yeah, it was set up for men. But if we change it to be set up for women, then the men aren't going to work. And then we're all going to be so angry and annoyed because we have to be the ones doing everything, working, making the money, being the breadwinner, all that kind of stuff, because now the world doesn't work for him. I think people get so obsessed of this idea of perfection and equality and like it's got to make everybody happy. But once you realize, oh, it's actually not going to make everybody happy, how can I make myself happy in this? You stop fighting for this arbitrary goal that is never going to happen. Like, I'm sorry, but I do not think that the world is ever going to be this perfect place when it comes to work anyway, for women and for men. How can it? We both work so incredibly differently. We have to make it work for ourselves.
What do you believe will change when women do resource themselves with this permission?
Like change in the world or change for themselves?
Yeah, I'm thinking more in terms of like what would be a societal shift that you would predict?
Oh, what a good question. I would say a societal shift. Okay, I would actually say that the happiness level for women would increase because there's a lot of research. And this is one of the reasons that started me writing the book too, was over time, the more rights that women have gotten, the more unhappy we have become. That's not to say we shouldn't be voting and like making money, but it's interesting, right? The more responsibilities we've gained, the more rights we've had, the more ability that we have had, and the more permission we've had to basically go and live life like a man, we've all gone to do that. And we've all become increasingly more unhappy. So, my prediction would be, it's not to say we all need to become, trad wives if you don't want to be a traditional wife. And like, that's not the answer by any means. It's to say, how much more, like, how would, fertility come back? How would our health improve as a society? How would productivity increase again in companies and even for women? How would women's endometriosis and PCOS and all of these issues start to disappear? How much happier would kids become? How much better would relationships become? Would the divorce rate decrease? That's what I would expect to see as the flow on effect of, because all it is we, it's not even about like, oh, I have to fit into this box of what feminine is, right? Because I don't believe that there is one definition of what feminine energy is. It's really just about coming into alignment with ourselves. And that when we come into alignment with ourselves and we are actually living a life that makes us happy, and there's space for our man to then be happy as well, the overflowing effect, this with like the energy, is that more people are going to be happy. And then we just think about the flow and effects from that.
It is my personal belief that when the feminine chooses to make themselves happy, independent of how their men are behaving, that I'm not saying the whole world will change. I think that there's a lot of like unreachable places that wouldn't be impacted by this, but like within the family home and within the average human environment, family dynamic, that there would be massive global change by a woman choosing her overall vitality as her number one core value. Do
I
you
completely
have
agree. Right? I completely agree. I do think that a lot of women, well, this is where a lot of women can also get confused, or like misdirected on what feminine energy is. They think it's becoming a doormat to their husband. They
that?
think that, yeah, they think that it is becoming reliant, like so reliant on your husband where you completely lose independence. That's what people can think feminine energy is, but that's not feminine energy. Of a truly embodied feminine woman, she still has discernment, she still has boundaries, she still has direction, she still has all of those things. It's just that she also is fueled by intuition, creativity, flow. She's, connected to her body, not just living in her head. And so that's what makes her so powerful. So yeah, I like what you said, but for anybody listening, like being in your feminine doesn't mean that you need to just do whatever your husband says or your partner says for you to do, or that you just need to like, sometimes people will like comment on Instagram posts of like, oh, well, how can he like, what if I'm in a toxic relationship and he's manipulating me, then then he shouldn't be leading me, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you have not added your context to this very short Instagram post, right? Because clearly I'm not talking about letting a man lead. If he is manipulating you, you should not be in that relationship, right? Or if it's really unhealthy, you should not be in that relationship. But to your point, when we really step into our true power as women, and we still have that independence but not hyper independence, it's like independence but we're also able to beautifully work with the masculine without becoming reliant on them, that it's like we're their daughter and their daddy kind of thing, because that's not healthy either.
Yeah,
I think a lot would shift.
I completely agree. And I know we hear a whole lot about like the masculine leading, but I believe like the feminine energy locked in and aligned initiates the masculine. And so there's a lot of nuances to it that I've seen and then experienced personally in my own relationship. But yeah, I just think like overall the masculine will be happier. They'll feel more fulfilled when you're more fulfilled. All of the things that like I used to bitch and complain to my ex-husband. I'm like, God, if I had just been in my feminine, he wouldn't have ever done most of those things.
Yeah. Well, there's actually research that shows that when a man has a sense of purpose and is providing and protecting for the family, he's less likely to commit suicide. Like,
Yeah.
that's huge. That literally what they figured out can prevent suicide is a man having purpose. So many men these days don't feel like they have purpose because we have taken their role from them. It's this like, I can do it all myself. I don't need a man. I can't rely on you. We become the breadwinners, the housekeepers, the wives, the cook, the chef, everything. And it's like, well, what's their job? We don't even need them to make babies anymore. So it's like, well, what's their use? But to your point, yeah, to an extent, depending on obviously the context and the situation, um, how I like to say it is that you can be a muse for your man. Like, we are, when you're in your feminine, you are this muse,
Yes.
and by being in this muse energy, it inspires your man to want to be more of a masculine man. He then wants to lead, he wants to protect, he wants to provide. But a key thing in all of that is, do you give him the space to do so? Do you let, keyword let, do you let him actually lead you? Or do you say, I want a man that leads, I want a man that directs and makes decisions and blah, 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 and is more assertive. But then when he does that, you reject his leadership.
Hmm.
You emasculate him. He's not
Yeah.
going to then keep leading. So it's all well and good to want a man to lead, but can you let him lead? And if you're in this muse energy, you know, your energy is naturally inviting him to be more in his masculine. And so you don't even have to say anything. He just does it.
Keith has even said, like, since he met me, he's like, he's studied masculine and feminine energy longer than I have.
Okay.
And he's 54 and I'm 42. So, like, we have a nice little age gap, and he's literally been
Yeah.
at this for a really, really long time. And so he came in already, like, well equipped, embodied. And, but he has even said, like, I understood what it meant to be in like devotion to my woman, but I've never felt it at this capacity. And part of it is
Mm,
because I'm so receptive to his leadership. I'm so receptive to his devotion. Like, I did so much work to where I could open myself and receive it. And he's even said, like, to your muse comment, he's like, I just want to be so much better for you.
mm.
He's always been an ambitious man, but like even his vision for himself has like grown so much
I
since
love
just
that.
being in relationship with me. Not because I've said I need you to do this or like
Yeah.
expectations of him, but it's just like the desire has grown the more that like I'm softened in my feminine. I allow his leadership and his and I allow myself to be receptive of his gifts, like in all capacity. Part of the stuff when we were moving in together was like I was triggered into this old pattern of like my value is in my motion,
Mm,
which I can do. And so I'm like trying to move in, and I'm also like, I've been in this space, but it doesn't feel mine yet. And I moved into his house. So that was also presented its own like unique things, a place where like he had lived with, a previous partner before. And so it was a lot of emotional clusterfuck all at once. And I
yeah.
know I'm just like, I didn't want to like have my stuff like explode all over the house. I was like trying to
Yeah.
get everything put away as fast as I could, just like burning myself out, not realizing like I wasn't even giving myself any time to rest for weeks. And I like tapped back in. I was reading The Empowered Wife, if you've read that book.
No, but what's so funny is that I had a podcast interview the other, like maybe like 3 weeks ago now, and she mentioned it to me, and then it's been popping up everywhere, like reticular activating system, like in full. I've never heard of it before, and now you said it too. I'm like, okay, I need to read this fucking book.
It's such a good book. I haven't even finished the book, but like she said something there. I'm like, oh, I get that. Like I fucking teach that. What am I doing? Why am I
Yeah,
acting like this? Like
yeah,
I really
yeah.
just went into this like robot, like old conditioning mode. And she's like, just do 3 things a day that's like totally for your pleasure and for nothing else. And I'm like,
Mm,
right, I can do that.
yeah,
So and
but
then like,
uh,
and
yeah. On the flip side, oh, sorry, Andrea, keep going. There's a delay. Keep
go
going. Oh no, I was just gonna say, on the flip side, my husband, when I met him, no idea what masculine and feminine was. He hasn't, and even still, he's not into this work. He doesn't like read any of the books or anything like that. But I share that because that hasn't meant that he's not been masculine. Like,
right.
for ladies listening, you do not need to be with a man that has, like, if you can, amazing, right vibes, but you do not feel like, oh, the only way to be with a masculine man is like, I have to find a guy that's been studying this and like into the work and blah blah blah. Because when I met my now husband, he didn't know what a coach was. Like, he didn't know any of this stuff. He's like a coach, like what, like a basketball coach? Like, no idea. He thought I was daddy's money. Like, he had zero clue that this whole world existed, basically. No idea what feminine and masculine was. He thought masculine was just like the 6'8", really macho guys that are super alpha male. Like, that was his depiction of the masculine. But one day I was making a cup of tea and I was standing at the kettle, and this is where I got this like muse thing from. And I can't remember what I asked him, but he said to me, he said, "Thank you for being the woman that you are, because it's allowed me to become the man that I've always wanted to be." And I write like the sentences like in the book too. I will never forget this, but it was this moment of like, all I've had to do to support him being the best version of himself and to continue support him to be the best version of himself is just to be me, and to give him the space to be him, and to be in my feminine and whatnot. But to your point, like, as time has gone, he has gotten so much more motivated, and his purpose has grown and all of that, just like your partner. And then especially, being pregnant, like, that's then amplified and whatnot. And I haven't had to ask him to do any of it. It's that natural desire. And I'm curious whether that you felt this too. But I've definitely felt like, especially even in the beginning of the relationship, and then it's obviously gotten more and more, the more that he also steps into his masculine, the more I want to then support his masculine. And I want to cook for him, and I want to bring him lunch, and I want to nurture him, and I then am also incentivized and kind of like invited into more softening, more space, more receivership, more letting go, because my nervous system, like the feminine nervous system, then feels so safe in the presence of such masculine energy.
Yeah, my capacity is like so widened because of like me. If I make myself happy first, he just wants to make me happier. And
Yep.
his devotion, just like, it's fucking crack. There was this one time I was like, I had a little bit of just like a super, super strategic week where we're
Uh-huh.
working on projects. And I just like, we were cuddling in bed and I was like, will you just pet me? He just like looked at me and he's like, you don't need me to pet you. And he just like grabbed my head and like held the back of my neck,
Mm.
just stared at me. And I'm telling you, within like 95 seconds, my whole body just melted. And it was just like, he's just like, you're doing your own thing. I'm doing my own thing. All I want to do is make you better and happier and more relaxed. Um, and then, on when we are moving in together and I finally gave myself permission to like fucking pause and like do something just for leisure, I let myself take like a 30-minute nap and he comes in and I was like, God, I'm so glad I did this. I felt so good. And then he comes over and he's like, do you need a shoulder massage? And I was just like, I don't have to,
Love it.
like, we don't have to
Yeah.
ask, like sometimes it's like we need to communicate our needs, but more often than not, I literally don't need to even say what I need because he's just trying to predict it and just make me happier and happier and happier.
Oh, the best feeling. Like,
Ladies,
truly the best.
ladies, just make yourself happier and it will amplify like 10x.
Yeah, seriously. I'm curious, are you the breadwinner?
So we both earn well, but I
Hmm.
do earn more currently. I don't think that will always be true, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you feel like that's changed the dynamic, or that's like, how's that influence things?
it's been interesting because when we met, he had just made a massive, massive investment. So his liquidity
Mm.
was a little bit different at that time. And it's been interesting to kind of like, for me to be like, okay, let me stay in my feminine, even though like I want to just be like, oh, I got it. Like, I will
Yeah.
not grab a dinner bill when we're going on a date.
Oh
So,
no, no, do not do that.
mm-mm, mm-mm,
Ladies, do not do that.
mm-mm, nope. If we're at home, like I'll like Uber Eats us stuff or something like that.
Yeah, that's a totally different energy. Yeah.
But like date night, like I don't touch shit. Like I don't touch my door
Yeah.
handle. I don't touch the bill. I don't like, yeah.
You don't even need a wallet those nights.
No, I don't even, yeah, most of the time I really just have my phone just so I can take selfies of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But moving in together has been interesting. Like we've had some dynamics of like who pays for what and how do we do it? And
Mm.
there, and I've actually used my own AI to like help me kind of interpret what I'm thinking, how do I communicate this? I don't know what to say right now.
Yeah. Oh
And
my God, wait, that's cool.
that part I've never done before with a man where it's just like, okay, we're splitting bills. How do I say this? He had said something to me
Mm.
like, well, I bought the last bag of dog food. And instantly I got this like ick of like, do we have to share like splitsy on like dog food? And I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But hey, it's a true thing, right? There's like that's a perfect example of like something small that would 100% be like, what the fuck? Like it would be an absolute ick,
Yeah,
you
absolutely. So
know?
I went back to him. And there's certain things where I'm like, I don't want to ever have a conversation again about like you bought the last bag of dog food, but like I'm also not going to go to him and ask him permission to go buy furniture. I'm just going to go buy it and I'm not going to ask him to pay for a thing because
Mm,
I want to nurture our environment and it feels really important to me. I feel happy, I feel alive, I feel surrendered, I feel creative and all of the things and like I don't need to go to him and be like, "Hey, can you like get me halvesies on this?"
yeah, 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 yeah.
But then he'll have someone come out and wash my car and he'll be like, I got it, and like,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're
I
learning,
love
but
it.
it's been a little bit of like, is this okay? This feels weird. A
Well,
lot of vulnerable conversation.
yeah, and the reason why I asked is because like I am so passionate about talking about this because the we've never had a situation as women or men
Yeah.
where so many women are the female breadwinners. Like it's just never been a thing. So we don't have the wisdom of like a past generation to lean on of like what is the best way to do it. And so many women, they are making so much money, but it's then leading to resentment in their relationships. And they then create this belief of I have to choose between success or love. I can't have both. Or women immediately feel like, well, because I'm the one making the money, I'm then the masculine in the relationship. I have to then control the money, do the budgeting, make all the decisions, blah, blah, blah. And they don't feel like they can then have this man that's providing and protecting. And it's like money is not it's not about providing and protecting. Like, your man can be making less money than you and absolutely be providing and protecting because there's so many other ways to provide and protect that are completely um unrelated to money. And I think there's like that new layer, like that's where the money work comes in, right? With the polarity work these days for women of you've got to heal your relationship with money. He's got to as well because this also influences him. So many men then feel not enough, not like their provider, not like their protector because they're not the one making the money and we're navigating it fucking terribly because no one's taught us how to do it. They're
Yeah.
then feeling emasculated by it. It's creating all this resentment in the relationship, which is then causing women to think, oh, the answer to me being happy in my relationship is to not make so much money. And that's not what I want women to think at all because that's not the answer. I want women to know that they can absolutely make tons of money and still be absolutely well devoured, well loved, well protected, all of that good stuff. Yeah. But it's hard. Like it's definitely like a challenging um it's challenging conversations. It's challenging for the nervous system. It like there is no like easy cut solution for it. But it's definitely doable to be in your feminine and be the female breadwinner.
1000%. I remember having this conversation around like we wanted to buy a boat and I was just like, I just want to pay like one of the most feminine things that I do is earn money. Like I
Mm-hmm.
earn well and easily and it makes me happy and
Yep.
it feels like nothing to me. And he wasn't in a position like he had just made it was pretty soon after like we had decided like okay this is a thing like we're like devoted to each other and I was like just can I would it be okay if I just bought the boat and you did everything else because I don't want to fucking ever worry about I don't know how to change an oil on a boat like I don't want to
Yeah,
ever have
no, fuck that.
like finding someone to like maintain the boat make sure they're doing a good job like put gas in the boat I'm like I don't, literally can't do any of that stuff I mean I
Yeah.
can but I would not want
You
to
do not want to. Yeah, no.
No, but like me just like, dropping some cash to like go buy a boat, I can swipe my card.
Yeah. But that's a perfect example because when Hal and I were first dating, I kind of explained to him like a similar dynamic of, we met on a chairlift skiing in Colorado and we were going to go back to the hotel that we kind of the hotel at the base of where we met on the chairlift. And so, this hotel though it's the Ritz and it's not fucking cheap, but of course I was like, well, it's the only hotel that I'm staying at on the mountain. Like that's where I would like to stay, and he actually paid for the hotel because he was not letting me pay. But when it came to like the car and food and other things like that, like I wanted to go to Whole Foods. And of course, when he saw the Whole Foods bill, he's like, this chick is fucking insane, right? Because he doesn't shop at Whole Foods like normally. Now he does. But my point is that I explained to him, similar to you, of the value that I get the value that I get when I allow myself to pay for the car for the weekend, or let's say I was paying for the hotel but he's doing everything else.
Yeah.
That is more valuable to me than like me having to do it or us splitting 50-50, right? And I think that sometimes for women what can be really helpful in the beginning is actually almost explaining that to your man and putting like a value on what he is then going to show up and do, even if you're the one paying for the thing. So like you paid for the boat, yeah, but him doing the oil and everything else, like that to you is valued at X amount of dollars. And that can help men to then be like, oh, it's not that she's like my mother and paying for me. I'm
Right.
actually adding a lot of value, even if you can't even if he's not the one paying for it.
We don't like splitsy energy either with like stuff where it's
No,
like, oh, I'll get you back for half of that. It
no,
feels greedy. It's not
no,
like
we
it's
never did that.
this like in complete devotion to like the greatest love of all time in the history of the world. Like,
Yeah. Well, I think that splitsy energy can also just very much I mean, that's kind of tied into the whole independent woman thing of like, I can get my own bill, I can get my own half, blah, blah, blah. Just let him pay.
yeah,
And then, when you're at the grocery store, you can just fucking pay. Like, why does money have to be this like, heavy thing that we think about in the relationship that, requires all this communication? If you love somebody, you trust them, they trust you, can it not just be like a give and take if that's what the relationship is like with the finances?
yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting conversation that I feel like there needs to be so many more podcasts on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a whole program on it for a reason because it's like
Okay,
the
great.
breadwinner thing. Yeah. The feminine female breadwinner is what it's called. Cause I'm like, it is a challenging thing to navigate. And, I am the breadwinner and my husband actually works for the company now. So we work together. And so it's that added layer of like, I'm not just the breadwinner, but also like my company pays him.
Mhm.
And I mean, yeah, it was challenging a little bit in the beginning, but I'd been kind of working on this with the, men that I was dating prior to that. So I feel like then once I got into this relationship, I was able to really like navigate it in a new way. And it's just been, it's not been a fucking thing. Like I can confidently say that I do not feel like it is my job to keep the roof over our head, even though I technically pay the mortgage and I bought the house and all of that. Like I don't feel that at all. I don't worry about the finances. That's his job.
I love that. Like, we don't blended finances, but I still don't feel that way, even though like we both definitely pay, I'm like it all washes out at the end of the day. We both
Yeah.
really do kind of like equally pay for our lives. But
Yeah.
if like the shit hit the fan, he would lead us out of it. It does
Oh,
not
100%.
that would like be on me.
No, we've had that conversation of like if it and that brings that safety, right? In being the woman making the money and being able to be in your feminine. We've had that conversation of if I decided one day I don't want to run my business anymore or the business is not making money, he's just like, that's fine. I would just go back to corporate and get a job, like no big deal. That is completely his responsibility. There is none of that is my responsibility, which is such a nice feeling to have. And then it allows you to just enjoy your work as a woman, whatever it is that you're doing, versus feeling like, oh, I have to be the breadwinner. I have to make the money. Like that is not a weight that a woman's nervous system is actually made to be carrying.
No, No, not at all. And I love this conversation. Okay, you have this beautiful book, Becoming Her. Where are the places that people can buy this? We'll drop links in the comments as well. But
Yes, you can buy it wherever you can buy your books, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all the places. And once you've read a little bit of it, please, please, please leave a review so that the Karens that just say, oh, it's a trad wife book that haven't clearly read the book could actually fuck off. We can weed them out.
what would we do without the Karens?
Oh, some of the reviews are so funny because I'm like, you actually haven't. They obviously just like looked up my Instagram or something, and I'm like, you haven't read the book because that is not what the book's about at all. But anyway, yeah. So you can buy the book wherever you buy books.
God bless. Like, where do people have time for this shit?
I know.
Oh my God. Monica, this was such a nourishing conversation. Like your
It really
embodiment in
was.
is so felt. Like just
Thank
even
you.
hearing you speak about it, like there is such a softening that I know people are experiencing. And I can only imagine that when they get their hands on this book, that that softening will continue and even really, really deepen. And we'll also link the course for the
Yes.
winner below because I know that that shit's gonna sell out. And you just need
Thank you.
a tool, Legend AI.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you so much, Andrea. This has been such a nice conversation to have and to also just hear like how you navigated everything. I feel like it'll be a permission slip for women and just like eye opening and also validating because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to be navigating in the modern world.
Oh my God, it's so hard, but it's so worth it.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
that
it's so worth it.
on the
It's
other side.
hard in the beginning, but then once you actually fall into it, you're like, this is so easy because it's so natural. Like it's our natural state of living. So it's hard in the beginning. Once you then dropped into it, it just is the easiest thing and the only way that you want to live.
Oh my God, I would never go back.
Oh,
Never.
fuck no. When
Yeah.
women are like, oh, I'm afraid that once I do this, I'll then, something will happen. I'll go back to my masculine. I'm like, trust me, you will absolutely not.
You will not. You will realize that everything that you want is easier on the other side of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Love, money, any of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Monica, this was so amazing. Thank you so much. Have you guys like grab the book, of course, but please, please, please share this episode with every woman in your phone book.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God, Monica, where do people find you on the socials?
MonicaYatesHealth.com is my website and everything is there. Podcast, Instagram, all the things, freebies. Yeah, all of it.
Okay, we'll drop everything in show notes for you guys. I
Thank
love
you.
you, appreciate you. Please share this with a friend and leave us a review if you heard the whole podcast.
Yeah,
Only.
not just the first 10 seconds.
Oh my God. Monica, thank you so much. You guys, thank you for tuning into another episode of the More Alive podcast, and we will see you guys next week.